Hey, welcome on in, guys. Tobin here with you, and thanks for checking out the channel. Hope you're doing well out there. If you guys could subscribe, that'd be great, and appreciate you stopping by. So we're getting ready for the weekend here as your Miami Heat, still in the midst of the full offseason. Tyrese Haliburton with a friggin' another dagger, near buzzer-beating game winner last night, sticks it in the OKC Thunder, and what do you know? They steal game one, they steal home court, and this dude's magical run just absolutely continues. And look, I do understand everybody who's looking at the way the Pacers have gone about things with their crew and slowly grinding away and getting through things and trying to figure all this out, because if they do end up winning the championship, my God, you talk about a story of beating, two of the best teams in the league. There's not really a lot of holes you could poke in this one, Sometimes when you have a situation of like a champion like this, you're like, or a potential champion like this, because even like last year with the Celtics, I think we all realized how good the Celtics were. But one of the things that was frustrating about it's like, yeah, but you guys got to basically roll in here on a limping red carpet, and it just was very anticlimactic. And this playoffs, quite frankly, has been anything but. It's been a very, very enjoyable playoffs. There's been high drama throughout all of it. The rounds have been fun. And this guy is just, his star rise has been unfriggin' believable. And yeah, there is a part of you that's like, as a fan and seeing your team take them on and all the matches with the Pacers, you're like, yeah, you always knew that was kind of an ugly matchup because of all the offense, but there's also been some pretty big tussles between these two squads, and you're like, how far are they from being that? And is Bam, is Tyler, do any of them have Tyrese Haliburton in them? Because, like, as far as Tyler's concerned, like, this is a guy he grew up with, right? Probably came out of the league, guns blazing, thinking that I could be Tyrese Haliburton, a better scorer than Tyrese Haliburton. And I would say maybe if you just were to go like full bag, full arsenal, prettier shot, all that stuff, yeah, there are elements of Tyler's game that you certainly could be like, oh, I mean, this for this you'd take Hero, but like these moments that Tyrese Haliburton is having as the leader of his squad, and understand that right now his squad, top to bottom, is better than what Heroes is, even with having Bam Adebayo, is this killer instinct that he's had to just go for the jugular and just absolutely end everybody, no matter what. I mean, we're talking about, the clutchiest playoff numbers you've ever seen. And that was in a game that he didn't even play that great. That was a game where he didn't really even make it that big of an impact. And I think that, that's just a testament. So a lot of respect in my way watching their team and what they've done this postseason. It does make you wonder, like, what is in store for the Miami Heat and what do they need to do, because I think a lot of teams are going to look at this champion or potential champion, even if they don't win the championship, the fact that they've already shown a lot of pride in making this a series. One of the things that was disappointing, if you look at the Heat's last two finals trips, is, it felt like, and especially this has been a case with the home games, in 23, like, you just never felt like the Heat just always blew their opportunities, never could really get into it. And then, like, you think about one game where they had the golden opportunity of Jokic getting into foul trouble. They couldn't take advantage of it. Aaron Gordon, Jamal Murray just absolutely sinking him. And you felt like on the tilt of that going to game 3, I felt like, the Heat got this. I really, really did. And they just never could recoup. If you go to the Lakers series, man, it was such a different feel, because the thing you're thinking about immediately is two of your best players are out. And then you're really behind the 8 ball in the series. And then Jimmy, and mind you, there was no home court advantage. It was in the bubble. But then Jimmy, gives you some kind of life, and you're inspired by that, but you're always 2 games behind. So for the Pacers to be 10-point underdogs and just hit a haymaker right off the jump, it's exciting. It could just be gentleman sweep style. Maybe OKC comes back and just thumps them left and right easily. But I don't know. As far as what is out there, what news is out there, what fodder is out there, the number one thing that there's been noise around this week has been Durant. And I think it's like, I didn't want to get on here every day this week talking about where things stand with KD and where they go. Because it's like, I think the last one I did on it was the lower in the asset price. Then there was a report from Gambadoro in Phoenix, and he had said like that's he did this on Twitter, and he did this on his radio show, where he was like, he goes, how could there have been no talks? There haven't been any substantial talks with KD because they haven't had any GM, and then they haven't had a GM. The GM was looking for a coach, which I thought was fair. But I think the thing that's interesting with Durant is getting insight on where he wants to go and what it is. Because the thing that's been interesting about this is you've heard a lot of mutual interest. And I think the thing that's funny with this breakup around Durant and knowing where the Heat stand and knowing and not knowing about like where their interest is, because they played it very close to the vest. Nothing really has gotten out of the Heat. We haven't really gotten any substantial Heat rumor this summer. It's been very, very quiet. And I think that's by design. The most, even Udonis Haslem yesterday on ESPN was sitting here and he was like, I'd love to say one specific team that he could go to. Wink. That was UD. And then he's like, but he has to look at where is he one piece away from winning a championship? Is that in Miami? We talked about this. I think it depends on what capital they have to give up to him, because if it's the one move that they have to blow a lot of assets on and they can't work around it a little bit, then I don't know. I think that's still a fair question. And I will also say, the other thing we talked about this week with the KD thing was the Kel'el Ware factor of it. I got to tell you, man, I watched Kel'el Ware inside the Heat. First of all, shout out to Inside the Heat. I love what they're doing. If you guys haven't seen on their YouTube page, first of all, I love the fact that they're putting them all on YouTube. So you basically have easy access to it whenever. You don't, because sometimes I'll tell you, like, you have these Inside the Heats, and they do such a good job of them, right? They're doing something a little different in the way it's being produced. It's like a little more raw. And I was like, they gave such great behind the scenes stuff this past episode with like Kel'el Ware getting drafted, him picking his jersey, and he's with Mike Lissack from the media relations department, and he's like giving him the list of the numbers he can have. He goes, those are the retired ones. And so you see in the moment Kel'el basically just picking his number. It was really, really cool. His talks to Pat Riley, I just thought it was a badass job that the Heat did Inside the Heat. I love the fact that it's there. But sometimes I can get a little like, I don't know if I'm going to watch Inside the Heat, because I'm watching post game. I'm like, am I going to stick around on whatever network it's on to watch Inside the Heat? Sometimes the only time I catch them is at the arena, because I'll be there so early and they'll play them on the Tron. So, but they were doing these last couple they've done with Nico and Kel'el. They've done something a little different. We know that they did the Goron one. I haven't seen the Davion Mitchell one yet. But this one was just good. I love what they're doing with it. Usually, and it's not that I don't love classic Inside the Heat. I'm just saying, as a person who notices how things are produced and put together, I love what they're doing. And I loved how he was like, they were like, the interview style that they were doing it in, and they're like, what do you want to be remembered? He goes, I want to be remembered as a monster. And I was like, oh, Warehouse giving me the Goosies right now, dude. So I would just check that out. It's recommended viewing for me for Heat fans out there. I would say you have to go check that out. But it definitely did give me pause. I'm like, I'm such a yo-yo right now as far as like as where I am with my takes, because it's like, one day I just want action. Maybe I'll flip Kel'el for KD. Today I'm like, no way, can't do it. and then there's part of me too that's like maybe the Heat should go full Pacers, which is like just see what they show the one of the things that I miss with the Kel'el Ware with inside that it was tall time, and I missed so much this season, like that window that we had from when Kel'el started playing to Nico's hand breaking, the lobs that Nico would throw to Kel'el Ware. I was like, I forgot about, because this season ended so miserably, I had forgotten how much that had become my favorite thing of the season. And you need reminders like that. So whatever, just check that out. But anyway, getting back into the KD thing. So Gambo from 95.7 in Arizona, he reported a couple things on KD that had said that he thinks that KD's getting traded before the draft. So we'll know before, and to be June 25th. So in 20 days, Kevin Durant will know if he's on the Heat or not, right? He had listed the teams. He said Knicks, Spurs, Rockets, Clippers, Timberwolves, Heat. So 6 teams there, right? He pointed out that he had heard from somebody who had talked to KD that KD was reportedly intrigued by the Spurs. And the thing that I wanted to say about this is nobody knows what KD is thinking, right? But it's been interesting because Shams had a report about mutual interest between the Knicks and KD. Obviously, they made a big change with firing Tom Thibodeau. But mutual interest there, maybe mutual interest in the Rockets, intrigued by the Spurs. Remember that there was the Ramona Shelburne piece that had said that, that there was intrigue about Kevin Durant going to the Miami Heat. So one of the things that has been interesting about this is everybody seems like they've come out of the woodwork saying, oh, we all were trading for Kevin Durant. We were all interested in trading for Kevin Durant. And what I found interesting was, weren't we all under the impression at the trade deadline that Kevin Durant was blindsided by the idea of getting traded back to the Warriors, and that was what pissed him off? But because the Jimmy Butler factor in all this, we all assumed like, oh, it was going to be Jimmy joining KD. They never got that done. So then it flipped, well, what about Jimmy for KD? And I just think it's interesting. I'm not calling anybody liars, okay? To be fair, I'm not calling anybody liars. But the way I remember it is, in the moment of that week, we were all sitting here for like 48 hours wondering, like, are the Heat getting Kevin Durant? And is that where this is going? Because the talks were the Suns wanting to make some kind of a trade, and the team they were engaged with, they had to be engaged with, was Miami, because they thought they were getting Butler. Then it was going to be, Butler to them, KD to the Warriors. KD didn't want to go to the Warriors. The only thing we know, mutually intrigued, whatever, we know Kevin Durant didn't want to go to the Warriors. He goes on Draymond's podcast. He said he didn't want to go anywhere. He didn't want to move in the middle of the season. Didn't want to get traded, right? But I have found it interesting that, do with this the Heat's chances you ever you want. I just found it interesting that now it's like unwinding. Oh, Minnesota made a really strong play for KD. New York had a mutual interest with KD. And I was like, they did? Like, what? When did this? Because I thought New York loved their team. They made their moves. They brought in Cat. I found a lot of that stuff interesting. I don't want to call anybody liars or any of that, because they've done the legwork on it. I have not. But I just have found all of the stuff and noise that has come out in the aftermath of that is like, oh yeah, everybody took a crack at KD. Everybody and he's mutually interested in everybody. And I'm like, he is? Like, I don't, wait a minute. I thought that this was just wasn't this a little bit of a trade love triangle here? Because what was supposed to be was Kevin Durant was hoping that the Suns were going to get Jimmy Butler. They never could move Bradley Beal. Then it was, okay, well, Kevin, guess what? We're going to trade you to the Warriors, Jimmy's going to go to the Suns. And he's like, nah, player, I'm not going to the Warriors. Sorry. And then Jimmy Butler ended up on the Warriors. But in the midst of that, there was a little bit of like, KD for the Suns. Like, can there be any of that? So and then I guess, this has been reported out, but like apparently like, the Suns owner wanted everything if he was going to do that. Right. But I don't know. I don't know what to make of all of it right now. It's very, it's very muddled. It's very interesting where things are. But I'm just like, wait a minute, where were all these teams at the trade deadline? Because there was only of the parties involved here, there was only one team that made that trade in that whole little back and forth. They had a trade where like they traded the Suns a pick to unlock other picks. But their pick, but the Suns and the Heat and this whole little dance that went on between them, like at some point we thought, oh, maybe they're going to end up getting KD out of this, and it just never materialized. But now apparently everybody was in on it. I don't know. I don't know what to make of that. That was very strange. The one thing else that was interesting though that Gambadoro reported. He said for sure the Suns don't want Karl Anthony Towns. That trade had been, I think, thrown out there by some. Cat's value a little bit low right now. They apparently would prefer somebody like, in his reporting, Bridges or OG Anunoby. Bridges, of course, used to be on the Suns, was in the original KD trade to Brooklyn. But having players like that was interesting to me because it made me think about Wiggins, who's not like an apples for apples guy, but OG just signed a pretty lucrative deal. I imagine Mikal Bridges is going to want a pretty lucrative deal. Wiggins makes a little bit more, is a little bit older than him. But if they don't want to go back in the well of Mikal Bridges, I don't know where they're at with that. Would they be interested in somebody like Wiggins and Ware to make that happen? Is that enough? Because there's a big debate about like, oh, do the Heat have the assets to stack? Like they're talking Whitmore or Reed Shepherd from the Rockets, Vassell, and pieces from the Spurs. And I don't know, because it's I guess again, I think a lot of this is going to come down to one, how much leverage does Kevin Durant have in pushing to where he wants to go? I'd say a lot. And the Heat's willingness to part with Kel'el Ware. I think that is going to be the interesting pivot point here for them and where they go with all this. But yeah, certainly like it definitely feels like the noise. I have found it interesting that the noise around KD in Miami nationally has been like non-existent, and I don't know if that's by design. It possibly is. But it's interesting to me, like hearing all of the reverse engineering of the trade deadline. Like there was this robust market for Kevin Durant. And I'm like, if there was this robust a market for Kevin Durant, like wouldn't he have been on those teams? Like he was pretty clear about one team he didn't want to go to, and then said it via his mouth that I didn't want to get traded in the middle of the season. But now everybody's got mutual interest around there. So do with that what you will.